Welcome back to The Breakdown with me, NLW. It's a daily podcast on macro, Bitcoin, and the big picture power shifts remaking our world. What's going on, guys? It is Friday, December 20th, and that means it's time for the Friday Five. Before we get into that, however, if you are enjoying The Breakdown, please go subscribe to it, give it a rating, give it a review, or if you want to dive deeper into the conversation, come join us on the Breakers Discord. You can find a link in the show notes or go to bit.ly/breakdownpod. All right, friends, we are back with another Friday Five. For the first time in a very long time, price is off a little bit today, but that doesn't have us down. We are firmly looking at the future, thinking about possibilities and understanding where we're headed. And so with no further ado, let's dive in.
I'm going to bring on NLW right now. Checks price, bad price.
Yeah.
I mean,
93, 94 now is awful.
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean,
I was just recording a far out predictions show, The Growths of Bitcoin's Future, about how we're never going to see five-figure Bitcoin again. And here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that. Yeah, I mean, wasn't that always Ryan Selkis? You know, I can't believe this is the last time we're going to see Bitcoin be low. I don't know where he got it, but that
was one of my favorite Selkis memes. He really leaned into that one.
Yeah, and I'm sure he did it again, and I just missed it. But here we are, $95,000. To your point, it's kind of like the Squid Grow meme or any of the memes where it shows like an ugly girl and a hot girl. 95 on the way up looked really attractive. 95 on the way down, we're going to 5,000 or zero, or maybe it's over.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Are you seeing any of that sort of discussion, or is it just generally sort of like the vibes are, we wanted a little bit more Santa Claus and Powell stomped on our fun?
I mean, I have seen people saying that they think that this could be the top of this bull market, the cycle's over, but I have not seen people, to be fair, calling for $12,000 Bitcoin or anything crazy. I think the craziest ones I've seen, which are not crazy technically, are people saying, mid 70s, maybe it goes into, the low 80s, something like that. And to be frank, that would be just the classic 30% bull market drawdown that we've seen countless times on the way up.
Yeah, I think one of the really interesting questions, I was just discussing this in that same show, is I think it's going to take this cycle, like a full cycle, full 4 years basically of having institutions present the whole time to really understand what the new cycle dynamics are. Because you now have the competition between Bitcoin secular dynamics on the one hand and all those sort of forces that contribute to that. And on the other hand, the sort of normalization that comes from participation in the traditional financial markets. And those two forces are at some points going to be running at cross purposes with one another. And it's not going to be exactly clear which is sort of, winning and exerting more influence. But it seems likely to me that Bitcoin still is more cyclical than, and crypto generally is more cyclical than other traditional assets, but it probably has a lot of the hard edges shaved off. And so we don't know yet how to recalibrate our expectations of a down market. Is a down market 50% now instead of 80%? Is it 30%? That'll be one of the big questions, I think, to learn over the next few years.
And we don't learn that until we see how much volatility might be dampened to the upside as well, right? Do we get a 2-time cycle instead of a 3.5-time cycle, which used to be a 15-time cycle, which used to be hundreds, right? Obviously. And I think a lot of the reason for some of the downtroddenness, if that's a word, is that altcoins have just suffered so badly, right? Yet another thing that happens in bull markets, but if Bitcoin goes down 13, 14%, you see the big name altcoins going down 30, 40. I've seen some that are obviously going down 50%. But, even Bloomberg saying pullback deepens as US ETFs suffer record daily outflow, but this is a classic sort of bull market. And let's just dive in why, right?
Yeah.
Fed said exactly what he was supposed to say, said exactly what we anticipated that he would say, said exactly what everybody on the planet thought he would say, and the pain is real. So what's going on when they cut the 25 basis points, said, inflation's a little bit sticky and we'll probably cut a little less next year. I think everyone was anticipating that. And here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the people were anticipating it, but it was starker, I think, than they thought, right? So in September, the dot plot showed something like 4 rate cuts next year. Markets were kind of predicting something on that order, three or 4. And it looks like after this meeting that it's maybe maybe 2, but not even guaranteed to get that. And certainly not early in the year. And so it is, look, this, I think that this should have been more expected. I think a lot of the smart commentary after was we should have anticipated this more. To me, what clearly came through in this was so people tried to the reporters in the press conference after tried to pin Powell down about whether this is an anticipation of Trump policies being inflationary, right? If that was the specific reason that they're concerned. And he said no, it's about a new administration just means more unknowns, right? It just means that there's less known. And so the fact that there are less knowns means that we have less clarity on what we're going to need. We're in a pretty good spot right now. And effectively they feel like they're in a fine place in terms of how restrictive things are, in terms of where the labor market is. And so steady state holding for them looks fine. And so until they have more information around what future policies are actually going to look like, the default is to do nothing. And unfortunately, markets just don't want them to do nothing, So this is, we've talked about this before. Anytime Powell gets to do less, he's the happiest in the world.
Yeah, it all makes perfect sense. And I think that probably tells institutions and others, maybe there's a good time to book some profit going into the end of the year.
Totally.
Sell some things. You're up so massively this year. I mean, Bitcoin's sitting over $100,000. You can't tell me there's not a lot of people sitting out there saying, maybe there's some uncertainty coming. I bought this at 20. It's a good time to just take a little off the top.
S&P is at 24% or something for the year. NASDAQ's at 31%. Like, it was a good year. People aren't stressing when they take a step back. And certainly I think you see a lot of that profit-taking behavior happening.
I think what will be interesting is to see what inflation does, obviously, over the coming months, because if inflation continues to rise as it's slightly has of late, it's going to be very hard for them to continue cutting.
Yeah, it's going to be I think that just the story of this, I mean, they moved also their projection for when we actually get back to 2% from the end of 2026 to the end of 2027. So they are very clearly like, we're in a long sideways for now. And nothing is more frustrating for markets than a long sideways in either direction.
Yeah, I think most people have just remained so incredibly bullish that even reducing your bullishness slightly meant that a sell was likely here. But there are a few mega bears out there. Well, actually, mega bulls that have temporary mega bearishness. Arthur Hayes predicts crypto will see harrowing dump around Trump's inauguration. So you don't have to read the entire thing. He's effectively saying, man, we've priced in the highest of expectations for Trump and what he'll do for crypto. And if those things don't start to happen really quickly when he's inaugurated, we could see a harrowing dump. But we're sort of harrowing dumping as we speak. So maybe we're preempting that idea.
Yeah, I do think that there's a little bit of a recalibration. I mean, we had seen something like 11 relentless weeks following the election, 11 weeks in a row of inflows that were sort of, creating new records basically every week to the ETFs. So I do think that there's a chance that this actually looks like a little bit of a recalibration that does take the edge off of some of that. I don't think Arthur's wrong that we had very high expectations. Specifically, the chatter around a Bitcoin strategic reserve has increased so massively over the course of December. That's the thing that has the biggest potential to, I think, let people down, depending on how it does or doesn't come to fruition. So, listen, a little bit of a reset now isn't the worst thing in the world.
Okay, so does any of this, do you think, dampen the 2025 expectations for a continued bull market for Bitcoin and a massive alt season to come?
I don't know, man. I think it's going to be much more driven by larger factors than we think, how much room to run Bitcoin has. I do think that given how much of the sort of price action is related now to institutional inflows, the way that larger markets play out, I think really matters. However, to the extent that there is any sort of reasonable continued support on that, I do think that they're officially just deciding which of the not that interesting narratives are going to be the alt season narrative, because they're so desperate for one that it's not going to have to be all that compelling. Right. And, it's like at some point people will be like, screw it. Agents, that sounds good. Agents is enough. Like, let's go. And so you definitely feel that hunger to let her rip, at least for some amount of time. But, nothing's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, it never is in markets. I think that it's just funny to see how quickly people turn and change their bias. And I think everything's going to be just fine. And if you've been here before, even if your alts do go down 50%, which they have, they can go right back up 50% in the next week.
Yeah, I mean, there are still a lot of people who are sitting on a lot of profit right now, too. So the ingredients for, an alt season are certainly there.
Yeah. So the next story we have is tailwinds, and one of the biggest ones has obviously been BlackRock, right? So as much as we can talk about price action and what the charts look like and what's going to happen, it's hard to dispute the fact that we're in the best position we could have ever imagined at this point coming into January 2025. We have the government wholesale supporting Bitcoin with the Trump administration coming in. We have BlackRock, the largest institution, financial institution on the planet, basically getting orange pilled and becoming Satoshi Nakamoto in the flesh. And to that end, I'm not going to show the entire thing, but we'll show a clip. They put out a 3-minute educational video on what Bitcoin is. And man, they really, really get it. Actually, it seems to have just disappeared from the stream. So I will hear where it was uploaded, but I will show you that it exists. Here it is. We don't have the sound, but it's a cute video basically showing all the reasons that we have said for very long that you should own Bitcoin. It's really sounds like a Bitcoiner put it out. They totally get it. They talk about the evolution of money. It ends with them saying, humans used to use seashells and coins and all these things, and it's natural that we would move in another direction forward. I mean, how big is it that BlackRock is doing these things?
It's huge, huge. I mean, listen, this is a top-down transformation of this organization. When Fink started talking about this, there was so much going on that it's easy to forget that in addition to just supporting Bitcoin, he obliterated the contrast narrative of whether Bitcoin was the only thing that was interesting or whether blockchain was interesting. I remember when BlackRock first started talking about the Bitcoin ETF, and he started doing the kind of roadshow to build support for it. People kept trying to pin him down with sort of the old conventional institutional narratives, like, is it about Bitcoin or is it about blockchain and this sort of things. And Fink just voraciously said it's all of it, right? And he articulated a thesis for Bitcoin as a hedge against debasement, but also why blockchain was a powerful system for whatever. And so he clearly kind of had this conversion experience, and it's followed all the way through to BlackRock, and they are speaking about it in the same ways that we speak about it, and that's part of what's made it such an interesting and I think exciting moment for people. Look, there are a lot of scenarios in which BlackRock comes in and Bitcoiners are nervous or hostile because of the way that they're looking at it, viewing it, trying to co-opt it, but that's just not how it's played out.
You're going to have a lot of people asking you why Bitcoin over the coming months and years and into the future. I would say that of all the resources I've seen, if they've got 3 minutes, this is a video worth sending.
Yep. Yeah, it's very hard for people to go straight to Sailor. Let's put it that way.
My MicroStrategy is not doing great in the face of all of this, but I think that's exactly what everyone would expect. But I'll tell you who has been doing great, and that's our next story. Coinbase ranks 5th globally in exchange revenue, surpassing Nasdaq and CBOE. Great tweet about this, just how much crypto is eating TradFi's lunch. I don't think we need to dig into the nuance and the numbers. I think it's just fair to say that people are trading the hell out of crypto. The volumes are relatively insane, only growing, and this makes crypto exchanges potentially some of the largest, best performing companies moving forward on the planet.
I mean, this is why all of us FTXers were very upset that Sam wasn't happy with the $1 billion of trading fees that were being made a year and had to go steal people's money on top of that. Crypto exchanges make an ungodly amount of money. This is an industry that is, an unfettered 24/7, free market bonanza with people who are extraordinarily engaged in a way that even other market participants aren't. And it shows up in Coinbase's numbers, right? It shows up in exchange volume. And I think that it's still, though, hard to remember. I think why this story was interesting is that, 5th in the world ahead of NASDAQ in terms of revenue is just so insane, like as a company that's been around, a decade or so. It's pretty phenomenal, and I think shows just how, what a force this industry is.
Yeah, you have to believe that moving forward, Coinbase, if we have continued interest in crypto, which we will, custodying all of the ETFs effectively, that they're just going to become one of the most powerful companies on the planet.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
listen, and listen, I just one more thing. Like I had Raoul Pal the other day. It'll come out on Sunday, but he basically said Coinbase, Brian Armstrong won this election.
Yeah,
it was like, if you look where all the money came from, it was the technologists and the crypto guys who won this election, and will make sure that the policy is friendly moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Coinbase has been an incredibly well-run organization throughout. It has been through all the cycles. It has been, the exchange du jour, but it's also been, the one that's out of favor relative to others. And it has just persisted and continued to be strong. And it's just an incredibly strong company.
Yeah, incredibly strong, but it doesn't stop a little pettiness when it comes to arguments in the public sphere. I don't have the tweet, but I'll pull it up at some point. Brian Armstrong and Justin Sun were going at it on X, and it's because of this. Federal judge says Coinbase can delist WBTC, denying Justin Sun affiliated Bit Global's bid for a temporary restraining order. The two of them going back and forth like school kids, which you love to see because this still is crypto Twitter at the end of the day. But effectively, Coinbase launching their own wrapped Bitcoin product, CBBTC, and taking some issue with their custodians and WBTC and Justin Sun. And wow, man, watching the billionaires go at it, always entertaining.
One of the big questions for this cycle is whether crypto is going to finally tell Justin Sun to right off. Period. Like, this is a legacy end of the last cycle type of person. I mean, this is a guy who got an article removed. CoinDesk is in it now because they've had editors quit because they apparently killed an article about Justin Sun eating the banana at his request because Tron is a big sponsor. Look, strongman politics is a way that crypto has run, but we're moving into a different world. And the reason that I think this story is interesting is that I think that it's much less about this sort of, bickering back and forth and much more around whether like this industry is newly emboldened to just say, I'm done with this sort of ridiculousness. And everyone knows that everything that touches Justin Sun ladders on up into Justin Sun's wallets. And it's preposterous to believe anything else. So I'm all for it. I'm glad they delisted. I'm glad they're being loud about why. It has nothing to do with anti-competitive behavior. They were very clear. It has to do it because anything that touches Justin goes to Justin. So whatever, man. Full team Coinbase here, as you can tell.
But interestingly, to give credit where it is due, until very recently, most USDT transactions were still happening on Tron. And so in places not called the United States, that is the chain that people were adopting to send stablecoins fast and cheap back and forth. But since the election, Matt Hogan showed a chart. Ethereum actually has surpassed USDT on chain over Tron again.
I mean, listen, people are completely welcome to still choose Tron because of the dynamics of the chain. I don't have any problem with that at all. I don't have any problem with the free market deciding. I just think that there's been sort of this desire to pretend that assets owned by the sort of Justin Sun, extended corporation weren't just all part of one big soupy pie, and it obviously is. So.
Yeah, Mike Dudas tweeted this interesting. Oof! Justin Sun gave World Liberty a ton of money. That, of course, is the Trump family's DeFi project. Coinbase and Justin Sun are in an intense lawsuit that escalated today about WBTC's safety and credibility. So World Liberty swaps 10 million out of Coinbase's BTC product into Justin Sun's in response. Horrible luck. This is more of the same. It's just kind of the pettiness, right? But pretty crazy.
It is what it is.
Do you think that he's going to eat any more bananas? I was at first I was thinking, man, that's a really old banana, but then I found out it's performance art, and they just keep switching the banana to keep it fresh.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, so he bought a $6.2 million banana that he
got. It wasn't even the banana.
Published for 20 cents that week, but the idea that they taped it to the wall made it worth $6.2 million. I don't know. The last story that we have here is trying to parse what the hell is happening at the SEC, and I guess what the hell is going to happen to the SEC moving forward. NFT collection CyberKong said it has received a Wells notice from the SEC. I mean, this may just be Gary and friends screaming on their way out the door because it seems like this is futile and useless, and the action is unlikely to be taken by the time Paul Atkins gets into the SEC. Hester Peirce actually out there right now saying we're going to get more ETFs, they're going to have staking, all these things in recent interviews. And then while this is happening and NFT collections are getting Wells notices, on the flip side, Carolyn Crenshaw, who people were fearing would be reconfirmed, she's one of the most anti-crypto of the anti-crypto army, even more so probably than Gensler. They didn't even bring her up to renominate her after people thought she was going to get reconfirmed. So we have these sort of bipolar actions by the SEC or regarding the SEC.
Yeah, it's a bit of a chaotic time. I mean, the cybercongs thing, I think that the question is whether this is a bomb being lobbed on the way out, whether this is, the enforcement division clearing off its desk and something that was 90% done and they know it's not going to go anywhere, but they're sort of flicking it over the finish line. Or are we going to see a dozen of these things in the last, couple weeks before things leave? Who knows? I put nothing past this group. I would say that our best hope is that they have been that they seem tired now for all the losing they've been doing. So maybe we won't have to deal with all that much optimistically. The Crenshaw thing is fascinating. I mean, it is clear with the SEC rules that they have to have 3 commissioners. It's not clear what you have to do, and that only 3 can be from one party. It's not clear on anything else. And so there's a potential that we roll into next year with 3 Republican commissioners and no one else. Now, I don't think that would be a good situation.
Or they could put independents on the other side,
yes.
or cherry pick a couple very pro, crypto or market Democrats.
I think that for, it's better for everyone if the SEC starts actually building back its reputation as a strong institution that's above this stupid pettiness. And so I would hope that you find, sort of open, thoughtful Democrat commissioners and continue to have that sort of more partisan balance. But they're lying in the bed that they made a little bit. So I would be lying if I said I wasn't glad that her reappointment wasn't being voted on.
Yeah, I also hope that we have a thoughtful SEC that actually discusses these matters in an intelligent manner and debates them and comes out with a rational conclusion. But she's the worst.
Yeah,
so
she was the only.
Literally anyone but her.
She was the dissent. She was the dissent during the Bitcoin spot ETF decision, and literally her dissent was the judge got it wrong, and I'm right. So that tells you everything you need to know.
Classic. Well, listen, it's next week. We're going to go into Christmas week. I'll be here on Friday. I don't know if you will, but I'll be here on Friday. But going into Christmas week, hopefully we'll be able to have equally positive conversations with our families and friends as we did on Thanksgiving. Maybe things will go up before then. I would hate to see Bitcoin at like 85,000 and everybody to have a reckoning at Christmas after recommending everything at Thanksgiving. It would be the most crypto thing ever, though.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to be just fine. I think this is just a normal retracement. Sitting already back $3,000 up from when I woke up this morning. Could be worse, guys. I say just chill, enjoy the holidays, and better things to come in 2025. You can follow NLW at NLW on X, and of course, check out the breakdown, his YouTube channel, everything he's got going on. Until next week, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Later, guys.
Everybody have a great weekend. Bye.